And we are live. Hello, everybody. We'll just talk for a minute in case people are jumping on, but this will be recorded anyway. This is a special for Cafe Lockdown, where we're just introducing Rachel Ruzick, and who wants to talk about her Facebook group, We Are the Voice. And hi, Rachel. How are you?
Hi, good, thanks.
Yeah. Okay. Well, why don't you get cracking and tell us what is We Are the Voice?
Yeah,
Part of the Johnny Farnham fan club. Johnny Farnham fan club. No, go on. Sorry, I'm only kidding. Go ahead.
All good. Well, We're the Voice is actually, it's more than just a Facebook group. The Facebook is just connected to it. It's really just a platform of change. And we sort of established this a while back when we had an understanding that there was a real need for hearing and recognizing the voices of Australians, because there are so many Australians that are speaking out during this time, and yet it's like this confusion of knowing who is actually on your side. And I think having that being locked down is really in the advantage of that, because most people just have no clue who's around them and who they can align themselves with. And there are a great deal of Australians that are aware of what's going on and are against what's going on. I mean, we even saw those 500 doctors last year from COVID Medical Network, and that was early last year. 500 doctors and specialists and health professionals, and that was early last year. And yet, we haven't seen really anything in the last 2 years because of this censorship and locking down. And so there is a great movement behind the scenes that people don't even realize, and it really works in the favor of what's happening, in order to silence people. If people feel isolated or like alone in what they're saying, they're much less likely to actually speak up. But if people realize how many people and professionals, medical professionals even, that are totally aware of what's going on and are against it, we would have much more momentum. So in order to act upon that, we tried to bring together a platform that really represents the voice of Australia. So it's kind of bringing it back to democracy, and hopefully even direct democracy eventually. But we really need a platform of change in Australia that really reflects what is going on, the demographics of Australia, and so that we can see, what is needing change, and how we can act upon that in the favor of the majority and the minority, because it's in our favor to act on both, either way. And so well, the best example of this is the last 18 months. There has been over 10 federal petitions, that's not counting state and just random petition websites, that have all been on the topic of vaccine passports and vaccine mandates. And none of them were really recognized in Parliament, and that's a huge flaw in our system if we're looking at, this petition reform.
Can I ask before that, have you been involved in petitions before this, in a previous era? Were petitions effective? Is it just in this new era where they're being ignored?
I believe, in the past, there have been petitions that have been effective, if they have the signature count. But the problem is, which is pretty much with every petition ever brought forward, is it never gets the petition count that we should have, because people aren't either aware of it, or like you mentioned before, people have petition fatigue. No one wants to sign another petition.
Well, let's talk about that. Petition fatigue is really interesting, but I think it's linked to the fact that people don't see anything with it, because I get sent maybe 4 or 5 petitions, usually the same one, going on. So people are actively sharing it, going, sign this, sign this. So there's a real push behind to sign them, and I've been signing, lots of people have, but it's not hearing the feedback. Did they ever reach anyone? Was it thrown out? Did it, it's the communication of it. But that might be becoming, like you said, petition fatigue.
Yeah, right. 100%. And I think the same for me. I mean, a lot of people around me are much more active than I am with petitions. For the last 18 months, I've barely signed a petition because, we all sort of have that feeling like this isn't going to do anything.
Yeah, like Alistair here has just said petitions do absolutely nothing, but I'm not certain. Maybe they do. Maybe we're just not selling the whole story. We're selling the start of it, maybe. And is that what you're sort of looking to do as well?
The petitions kind of came in on the side, and this was, a forming idea as we were going, trying to make this platform. But basically what we thought is, if we bring together a platform that reflects the voice of Australians, truly what, the voice of Australians is, and the numbers there have to be there. And what we can do to get there is we start to build this platform so Australians jump on, and these issues, instead of having 10 or more petitions done on one issue like vaccine mandates, that issue should be consolidated. That issue should be brought together and put forward one time to the Australian public, and make everyone's aware of this. This is it's almost like a referendum. When referendums have happened, and very rarely they have, but when they do happen, we can see this incredible success because Australians are keen to put their voice to something which actually will carry out and will.
Well, look at the plebiscite.
Look
at the plebiscite. We all talked about it. We all discussed it. Right. I think that's a great idea. But what you're sort of saying, it's like, I know you're probably not old enough to remember this, but when the Arabs were fighting the Turks, they were all in these little dispersed tribes, and they were brought together apparently by Lawrence of Arabia. But apparently what they did is they unified into one force, and then they started winning. So if you've got all these tiny little petitions, everyone going, so you're saying bringing it all together and actually really making it a solid petition to the level of a plebiscite, or like you said, a referendum, that's getting the media with it. And because there's the other thing now, is like with our show and others like it, there's several. There's a second independent media rising, and the people are flocking to it. We're affiliated with a few of them, and the numbers are going because everyone actually feels now like the mass media has just either ignoring them or even betraying them. We're not getting this out, and so this is really, really interesting. It's sort of, from what I'm gathering, what you're saying, it's like organizing behind the scenes to actually get the real voice and stories out. Can I say, on this site, where you say medical people are coming on, are they putting their names to it? Because aren't they worried that the medical board will toss them out?
Well, no. So this the website that we are making isn't going to post anyone's name on it. It's just you sign up and your vote basically comes up and it jumps up and you add to the numbers. But this is short term. We've just created this within the last 2 weeks, and
That's
it was
cool.
based on this petition that has just gone. Well, it's actually about to finish in a day or so. And the petition is called the TGA ban, an authoritarian threat to public health. And it was put forward by Dr. Philip Altman. He's not a medical doctor, but he is passionate about this area. And I think a lot of us have heard about ivermectin. This is our first push.
I hate to interrupt you, but could you, while you're talking, could you email me through a link to that petition if you've got it there, and I'll put it in the comments so people can look at it as we're talking.
Yeah, sure. So basically, I'm just going to grab this because I'm not.
The mass media are pathetic, fear-mongering cowards. That's being polite. Yeah, the link, please. Here goes. So link, please, petition. I'm a medico. Hi, Nessa Maji. If you'd like to come on and chat, Nessie, we had a doctor on last night, and I can't believe we're still on air because he just let loose. It was terrific.
Okay, there you go.
Good. Okay.
So basically, this is our first focus point that we're really wanting to to emphasize to the Australian people how important this petition is, because if people realize, what ivermectin is, I mean, there's obviously a lot of early treatments, but ivermectin has been used internationally, and it has a very high efficacy, and it's used in different therapies and protocols. So it'll be used as a combination therapy as well. But it is truly, it's been talked internationally as like a wonder drug for eradicating COVID. And the TGA has effectively gone and banned it. And so, the GPs that were prescribing this and seeing a huge success in Australia, obviously they just had to cancel the prescription or whatever else it was, and no one else was able to.
Before you go on, I'll just say it's the link to the petition is in the comments. I'm just going to leave that up. There's other comments coming through, but before we do that, I'll just leave the main comment up if you want to click. Now, can you just explain to drongos out there, like myself, what is the TGA? Just spell it out so we're all catching up.
Yeah, so it's the Therapeutic Drug Administration. It's a government-run, entity that basically just screens drugs.
Ivermectin, banned ivermectin, the wonder drug, just before COVID came out because for our health. Yeah.
Well, it banned it on this 10th of September, just so 1 month ago. But before that, it has scrutinized any use of the drug. So people using it, it was the doctors that were using it and prescribing it were very fearful too, and it was all very hushed because of the response to any other early treatment. I mean, early treatment has been completely censored. The topic has not been discussed at all on media, which is crazy. We have never, ever in the past, in the medical history of Australia or internationally seen, an illness where there was no treatment. You're told to just go home and figure it out until you're basically dying, and you have to be called into the the emergency department, and then we'll help you out.
Call up when you're blue in the face. Give us a call.
It's terrible, and we have elderly and vulnerable, and we're talking about the elderly and vulnerable and saying, well, get vaccinated so that you're protecting them, which is great if that's one option. But what about the option of early treatment? That should be reviewed as well, and that hasn't been. So it's like you smell a rat, what's going on here? And so basically,
well, there's a whole country stinks of rat at the moment.
Well, absolutely, but specifically in this area, it is criminal that you would take away a treatment that is so effective. And so
and it's actually working, like in India and other places around the world. They're actually documenting that it's working, and it's still ignored. It's incredible. I think the doctor last night said if you wanted to get it in the past, you had to get it for like some strange thing. They could prescribe it for that, but if they prescribed it for corona or COVID, and they would put it in front of the board or something. It's extraordinary times. On this, going back to this website then, so you've got petitions on there. Let's talk a little bit more about We Are the Voice. And so you got a website with the Facebook page, or is it just a Facebook group at the moment?
There is a website. It's wearethevoice.com.au. And then there is, obviously Facebook, Instagram, Telegram. So you can connect on all those platforms. But I mean, the original idea of actually this, what this is going to go towards, which if Australians can get behind, we will see effectively real change happening in Australia. But, the model that it's really based off, which was of interest to some of, my colleagues and myself, originally I've lived in Switzerland, and they have direct democracy there. And it's, it's so crazy. It's just like the system of change where every law basically is turned into a referendum. And
I'll go back to the Drongo comment to explain to the Drongos who have grown up in Australia, what is direct democracy? Because I know you've got here corporatocracy.
Corporatocracy.
That was there you go. But what is direct democracy? Tell us how they do it differently from us.
Well, direct democracy is basically, instead of electing someone to represent the constituents, you're basically you're putting your hand up and putting through laws just like that. So you're the one who's actually saying yes or no to the law. It is basically a referendum, and that is for every law that is put forward. So obviously not every law is put forward to the people, but most are. And what would happen when I was living
significant
there,
laws. You're talking about significant laws that would change.
Yeah, well, federally, statewide, and there it's federally in the cantons and in the little districts, and you would get like an envelope that would have like a pack, and in this pack you would have 3 magazines, one's for the federal, one's for the canton, and the other one's for the local district, and you basically read up on maybe 7 laws that are about to be enacted or not, and then from there you have a little pamphlet and you say yes or no to these laws. So you're effectively you are the one who makes all the difference with your yes and no, and it's awesome, because it empowers every person to be like, wow, I have I make a difference in this, and I am going to, read up on this. And Australians have become very lazy. They just,
And do they discuss it when that comes out? Like if it comes out to other people in cafes, are they discussing what they're going to do?
Absolutely. And the news, they feature all these new laws that are coming in for all these regions, and then there's discussion and there's debates, and there are people that discuss both sides. So it's really, you get a full picture of what's happening, and then you submit your votes, and it's awesome. And we totally need something like that in Australia, but that is not going to happen with
And what's the population of the country?
Oh,
do you think?
Yeah.
On an average, I can look it up.
I think it's about 24, maybe 8 to 24.
So it's very similar to us. So they're doing it. We could do this.
Okay, never mind. It's 8.
8 million, but still 8 million. I mean, you could do this in Victoria. We could do this. We got 6 million. We could do this in Victoria if we wanted to. If we wanted to go, we don't like this system.
Yeah. Well, I guess to try to put that system in place is just going to be impossible. So we've sort of
I understand that.
To make this happen without needing to sort of change everything, but we'll sort of change it alongside. So if we can get people onto We Are the Voice, we're going to start putting forward petitions that reflect the people of Australia. I mean, no one wants to do another petition, but if we can get people understanding that we'll consolidate the issue, we'll bring forward one petition and hopefully hit up all all our networks, and especially everyone on our list will get they'll first be able to submit, what do they want seen in Australia changed. And then from there, when we can reflect this in what campaigns we put forward, and strategically, disperse that information throughout all our media platforms and everywhere, so that all Australians really are able to see this. And hopefully it'll build momentum as people jump onto this. But then from there, people will be able to get this petition that comes forward that really brings together everything, and they don't need to worry about all these other petitions. It's just the one, and it's brought forward and combines all the forces, so that people are able to then either say yes or just leave the petition alone. And so eventually what we can come to is we can start putting, instead of just one petition forward, like we've just put the ivermectin, we can start to put on federal, state and local level petitions forward. And petitions the only reason why we're doing petitions is because they're already a legal means of creating change, but it's a very broken system. But if we can then almost hijack the system and break it every time, in that you're not going to be getting 100,000 for a federal petition, you're going to be getting 500,000 or 1 million, and that would be revolutionary. People, you couldn't deny that politically. You can't deny that, because the highest petition we've ever seen in Australia is like 500,000. That's the highest ever. So if we're starting to get that every single time on just your average issue, and people know, don't sign all the other ones, just just, come and, I mean, we can use the ones that people are putting forward in government, but hopefully, people can recognize this is the platform to come through, so that we can
become like an effective lobby voice, really.
Yeah, but it'll truly reflect the Australian voice, and that's what we need. We don't need another lobby that might be, sold out, or who knows what's going on behind the scenes. We need the Australian voice. We need to really see a platform that reflects that, and hopefully down the track we will be able to see, hey, 1 million people just said something on this, or half of Australia. And sorry.
So I think we got shadow banned there. You just froze. So obviously Dutton doesn't like the idea, and he's just thinking.
I think my phone is just being a little bit active, and I have
dodgy. Look, it sounds really worth exploring. It really does. We don't have a voice. Like, people have been saying, why are you going to protests? We're going to protest because we've got no voice.
Right.
There's the politicians won't listen to us. The media won't tell our stories. Families even won't listen, because if families tell it, you just have people telling you to shut up and do as you're told. And so when you meet up at protests, you often meet people who sort of have similar thoughts around the same thing, and they're wanting to be heard. So making that more effective in a safer way. Like, even today, just before this call, I've got a young father who's runs a music studio, who's can't do his music studio, doesn't want his kids vaccinated until he wants to wait until the trial period's finished. And he now is getting ready to write letters to his politician. And I'm saying, well, I'm not sure letters from you now is going to be effective, but somewhere where he can go and be a part of a growing online movement could help. It even could help him that he feels like he's doing something effective. Yeah. It's like small wins, on the way to change, especially if you get it in a place. I think we had someone on discussing it before with politicians. Politicians get scared when they feel they could lose a seat. That's the currency of it. If you've got some things going up that's affecting a few politicians, if they feel like, wow, there's a lot of people here, I mean, if there's 500,000 people have signed the petition, and each one represents at least 4 or 5 people who couldn't be bothered to sign the petition but felt the same way, suddenly this is a powerful voice. And we need one. Well, I think that's why the independent medias are flourishing. People are ranting. So people want to be heard. It's still our country, and huge changes are being made, like with Dan's pushing through these new pandemic laws today, without us having anything to do with it.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And the frustration of not having a voice, and this was 2 years ago, really, gave way to this idea, because it was like, what on earth, you could be an influential person, or a nobody, whoever you are, you have the right as an Australian citizen to have your say in this democracy, apparently, or apparently not. And so it was like, well, I have that right as an Australian citizen, and yet I don't have that right. How is that possible? It's like, it just doesn't make sense. And it was like, this is so terrible. I could be struggling immensely. I could be having a real valid point. And this is everyone during this pandemic that has spoken up, but hasn't really been heard. And yet, you're pushed away as if it's nothing, but you're not even heard at all. And, as a human being, we have intrinsic value, and that value needs to be reflected in being heard. And if our representatives don't listen to us, then that is completely broken. What are we, this does not affect people that are, against lockdowns or whatever. This affects every single Australian.
Of course it does. I mean, look at the apartheid system that's come in now. I mean, we have apartheid in our country now, and a lot of people are going, oh, we don't like that word, but that's what we have. I was with some young guys today, and they're laughing because they're saying, well, we can't go anywhere anyway because we've decisions we've made. But we've brought in this apartheid system without any public discussion, even really. We haven't even had where talkback where they've thrown it to us and let us think about it for a month or so. It's just basically it's happening, which is not a democracy. For such a draconian, enormous change, that's not a democracy. That's an authoritarian dictatorship. And so these is an effective tool in the fight, just to let people know that they're not happy. Because what's happening at the moment, I think, is because everyone's been isolated in their own house, and maybe in the house they have people who think differently. A lot of people are feeling very lonely, very alone, very isolated, and like it's all hopeless because no one thinks like them. You know what I mean? In actual fact, there's pages like yours that will come up will be letting people think, no, you're actually not alone. There's a huge amount of the population, even doctors. Like a perfect example is the priests. Now, I was never very religious, but we wanted to do for the show, why are the churches all closed? What do the priests think about it? Why haven't we heard from priests? So we went knocking, looking, find out that the priests had written a letter, 77 of them, to the public that the archbishops wouldn't let the public see, and if they, with the threat of being defrocked if they let it out. And he realizing the priests are as silenced as the doctors. So we published it anyway without their signatures on it. And now we have one priest who's allowed to speak, who comes on and speaks. But it's huge for the people out there of faith. It's just such a huge relief to hear from them. So even like last night with our hearing from a doctor, the show went crazy of people hearing. So connecting and getting voices, even if they're anonymous, and hearing, yes, there are doctors who are really against what's happening or really have concerns, is very, very healthy for maintaining even some sort of resistance, a resistance in the fact that we can have change. Even if they're making a change now, there is some way to fight back and change.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is that sort of what you're saying, or am I?
Yeah, no, I totally agree, and I think touching on the churches, extremely important issue, because the church is the moral, the church
Moral compass was the
yeah,
moral
well,
compass.
it is the moral. It should be the moral compass because it has
Could be,
this word that is, higher than the law of the land, and effectively, God has set that as something that's above the law of the land. So that when there is a dictatorship or someone who's coming into place that has that, who wants to control rather than just have the freedom and deal wisely with the people. This law goes above. But what we've seen, a lot of churches haven't really had the discernment of knowing, where they should act against, these measures, and feeling like if they go against them, this would be rebellion, or this would be, this would look bad, I guess, potentially. But really, it's more so a fear of man rather than a fear of God. And
it is.
That's that is so against everything, I guess, that God has, set in place, that he would, have this system of law, that, the rule of law is love, and that, to have love as the, the benchmark, so then when people are lonely, isolated, having like neglected, pushed, ostracized, all these things, it's completely void of God's true law, and it's actually going against it. It's disobedience to God's law. We're called to uphold this law of love, which means
totally
to
agree.
care for our brothers, to care for our neighbor, to visit the lonely and the sick, and to visit those in prison. And this is and another point with this is, government has potentially, from the start, they shut down the churches, and they shut them down basically dwindling money in front of them, saying, well, here's some cash, just, basically shut down and we'll support you. I mean, it's not deliberately said like that, but it is that really, we'll shut you down, we'll support you during this time. I mean, it is unbelievable. As the church, we're meant to be the social support of the country, supporting those in need, and reaching out. We're meant to be the social welfare, not putting our government, trillions of dollars in debt, but rather being that social support. So now we're seeing the country, shut down because no one's speaking against it, which the church should have. And then on top of that, we've accepted money, so we're silenced basically, and we're not giving the money to the people that we should be. Where our possessions shouldn't matter. We should be, giving them out to the people in need during this time, and visiting the lonely and the isolated. Suicide should not be a thing, when we have the support socially to get around people and to comfort one another and to be a light, in the midst of this. It's madness that we would have such an increase in suicides during this time, and that's not even being recognized, and it's obviously.
No, well, we haven't seen those figures, and I also think now too, my fear with the suicide rate, it's fear, is that as people come out of this, they're going to go, I don't want this life of medical servitude and tyranny and everything they're offering, where they're basically, I mean, to live now in the current world that they want us to live in, Chrissy, on a daily level, you have to agree to live in a communal lie and not mention that you're living in a lie. You have to agree to go in the direction that the government's leading you, even if your moral compass keeps pointing the other way and say you should be going that way. And you're not allowed to tell anyone that your moral compass is telling you that. You basically, silence and fear is the way forward, which is not the natural environment for the soul, especially an Australian soul. And that's where we're going. And the only way to stop that is to talk, is to fight, and what you're doing is basically organizing the structure to start conversations, start saying, how can we change things like this, which is absolutely crucially important. So even you say it's only 2 weeks old, but what's happening is there's all these different forms of resistance are starting to get organized and saying there's a great humanitarian need here. Our leaders and our major media are basically failing us. And so suddenly humanitarians are coming in and go, okay, what do we do? How do we change this? How do we organize? How do we stand? How do we protest? How do we try effectively change things? And so, yeah. I mean, there's things coming through at the moment. Is the lifeline we've heard is getting rid of volunteers on the suicide hotlines who aren't vaccinated. So basically, there's the number of people calling are going through the roof. The highest numbers they've ever had, I think, it's like 4,000 a day, and they've got less people manning the phones because they're not vaccinated. I mean, it's a phone. What are you going to do? How are you going to vaccinate? You're going to. I mean, it's just. It's lacking all empathy. There's no empathy to the bureaucracy. You know what I mean? There's no humanity.
Well, certainly. And the three, I was just touching on this, the three reasons we've stated in the campaign, you can see that clearly on the page, which really, really clearly state why this is happening. We've said one is, ivermectin is currently off patent, and which means, every drug has a 20-year patent life. And during that patent life, it's, it's owned by the company that's made it, and it's expensive. And so after that 20 years, it's removed, it's off patent. So anyone can create it, and it's very, cheap and accessible. And, any pharmacy can compound it, or, it's accessible and it's cheap. And so, it's not in the pharmaceuticals' favor to have this drug, on the market.
How are they going to make their incredibly insane profits?
Right.
All they're going to be able to do is save lives. What's in that?
Right.
What's in that for them? That's what we're dealing with.
And just if the people of Australia, it's not conspiracy. It's just right in front of you. Ivermectin off patent, and it's extremely cheap. Extremely cheap and accessible. Anyone can get it if we were allowed to get it. And so these new vaccines that come in, and these new medications that are now coming in, it stands to make billions and billions, if not trillions internationally, for pharmaceutical companies. And this is not conspiracy. This, pharmaceuticals is, after banking, one of the largest earning industries in the world. After banking, it earns the most in the world. So it is in the favor of the pharmaceuticals, especially with a worldwide pandemic where everyone needs this medication, to not have a medication that's off patent. It's just crazy. You want the one that's on patent and that you own, and that you are convincing everyone this is what to get. And we know that the media has totally gone with this message because they're sold out. And that's not conspiracy. That's just straightforward.
No, another example is the EpiPen. I think in Australia it's very cheap. In America it's really expensive because the pharmaceutical companies control it. So there's a few things. Remember that guy that they I think he either bought the AIDS drug or something, and it was like 75 cents, or it was like a ridiculously cheap. And then he bought it for something, and then suddenly made it $700 a dose or something. And everybody was calling him Sherville or something, his name. Everyone was calling him evil. But all he was doing was what the major corporations were doing, that the big pharma was doing all the time. And that's what they'd be doing in America. And now it seems to be they're doing it here. I mean, even the doctor we had on last night, he told us one of the most effective things for COVID is vitamin D. And not just sitting in the sun, but actually just getting huge amounts of vitamin D and sitting in the sun and getting people out and getting people fresh air. That's one. And we haven't heard any of this from politicians. All we've had is get the jab, get the jab. We haven't heard about stay healthy, how to stay mentally healthy, how to, what foods to eat, anything, how to lose weight, all these other things that we could have heard about to effectively deal with this. We haven't heard anything. Everything is just the one religion: get the jab, get the jab, get the jab. It's And
now
it's
with
sort of thing.
new drugs that are coming out after the jab, it's going to be like, get your jab, and then also here's some early treatment that we have on patent, and it's going to cost you, this and this, because we know that the vaccinated and the unvaccinated are going to be exposed to this virus now, because we're all coming out of lockdown, and we know that everyone can transmit and carry the virus. So we're going to need a solution after that as well. We can't just get the jab. We need an early treatment now that we've had the jab, and so now we're going to have an early treatment, but it's going to be on patent, and it's going to be way more expensive and way less effective.
$700 was the thing I saw. $700 was for the thing that could cost $2.
Right. And
That's
Australia has just gone ahead and signed a deal and bought, I don't know, maybe 300 million or something doses of this. I think round about that number. So, and it's going to cost the taxpayer, us, we're paying for this. And we have something that could cost, you can't even compare the fraction of the cost. And you don't even, it's not a dispute anymore that get the jab or don't get the jab. It doesn't matter.
No, this is not conspiracy. This is all true. It's not conspiracy. This is all facts. It's easy. It's out there. This is happening right now in our country. This is, and our whole worlds are being changed because of it, And it's not even a fact now that most people would know more people who've had an adverse reaction to the vaccination than they would someone who's actually got COVID, and definitely someone who's died of COVID. So, that's the truth. And we can't talk about anything because I know on this show we do, and we will risk, even like this conversation now, we risk getting kicked off and banned. This is where we are now. We can't have these conversations anymore without some sort of risk. We can't protest anymore without some sort of huge risk of fines or violence, even though today's one was peaceful. We know that the petitions, as you said, which is what I like what you're doing, most petitions just get ignored. like the voice of the people has no weight. So it's a very interesting thing. I'm not, it's be very interesting to see how you go. I'm definitely going to push it here. Here, this person, they're coming in. Some people have come in late. Who is this person, Michael? I missed the intro. This, I'll get all these things off, get all the banners off. This is Rachel Rusick. Rachel Rusick is with a new group called We Are the Voice. We Are the Voice here is, I've got it all here in the Facebook comments somewhere. Just redo it, Rachel, for those that are just coming in, because we're actually getting quite good numbers. So just do a quick update from the start, like you're on record. I'll press Rachel record. Done. Off you go.
So you just, okay. Well, yeah.
Just a brief.
We're starting a new platform from 2 weeks ago, and it's basically just encouraging people to jump on, to give their voice to this platform, really joining their voice with the platform so that we can get the numbers to reflect the Australian people, so that we can hold politicians accountable, and really, once we get the numbers that we need, it's not really you can't really deny it from the public space and the political space, because we're just really trying to push campaigns through that really reflect the voice of Australians, and get the numbers that we need to get the political attention, and eventually we will get that, because it just snowballs from here. It doesn't go less. It never redacts in any way. It always goes forward, and we can just continue to collect people's voices, and eventually we're going to be pushing forward issues that are reflecting, your school mum who's worried about the road, or the school that's being created, or whatever's happening, or your businessman who's worried about his new business startup, or on a federal basis, military issues, and on your so every issue we want a voice in as Australians, and this system this platform is going towards that, so that eventually we can start putting across these issues, and people can every Australian can start to look at issues that actually directly affect them, and they can start to voice their concern on them. And it's going to start reflecting the people of Australia. And eventually, when it picks up momentum, you can't deny that politically. When you're not reflecting in the laws that you're creating, when you're not reflecting the people, the constituents, your constituents, you're going to be removed, or you're going to be held accountable. So all of a sudden, you're pressured into almost complying with a platform that doesn't really have anything to do with you. It's going to be sort of hijacking the system from the side, and that's sort of what we're planning to do. But we're going to need people to actually get behind what we're doing, because I know everyone has petition fatigue, but we really need people to actually jump on it and recognize that just looking at these one-off issues and sharing them, and making people aware, it's so important, not just to share the link, but inform one another in just a very normal way, because these are things that just affect each one of us, and it's not some weird topic or conspiracy. It's just everyday life. So hopefully we can start to really reflect people who are desperate to voice what their concerns are, and actually hold politicians accountable.
And the first thing you're going there, here's the Facebook group. There's also a website called wearethevoice.com.au. Is that correct? Wearethevoice.com.au. And the first petition going up for is to ivermectin, is to make ivermectin legal again for doctors to prescribe. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, it's definitely to revoke the ban on ivermectin, but really to expose the whole issue, because if ivermectin is recognized in Australia, I mean, like India, like you were saying, 110 million people in just that one district COVID-free because of this drug, and they're just going around handing these care packages. People are just taking them, and it's incredible efficacy. And yet, we've just abandoned it from Australia. So we're taking away Australians' most effective weapon against this virus and continuing this lockdown phase and mandates and division, and it's madness that we would continue this. One more life lost from COVID is just ridiculous. Vaxxed or unvaxxed, it doesn't matter. One more life, one more suicide, one more week in lockdown, whatever it is. And the division now that, business owners now have to, turn people away.
Police their customers.
So long, right? We've suffered so long. We've shut down our businesses. And I mean, think about the corporatocracy here. Corporations are ruling Australia, and we're seeing small businesses completely shut down. So now the rich get so fat and rich, and the poor just absolutely, we're made even poorer. Someone who's just starting up a business. My brother started up a cafe last year, or early this year, and he's shut down already. Just crazy how things it's not reflecting the needs of the people, and it's reflecting the pockets of the corporations that own everything here, and especially own the pharmaceutical drugs and vaccines that they're pushing on people. So it's in their favor to lock everything down. And now what do? We go onto Amazon, we go onto these huge corporations that already have such fat pockets, and now they're just earning more and more, and our small businesses and our society just suffers. And now weeks longer we're going to see you are not allowed to accept people into your business now, or your restaurant or whatever, and we've suffered so much, and now you can't even accept those few people as well. It's just crazy.
Well, it's morally and economically insanity. The only way it makes sense is when you talk about corporations is that the country is going through a corporate takeover, and basically they're getting rid of all opposition, which is mum and dad stores, or what they used to call small businesses.
Absolutely.
And so it's definitely. So I might wrap it up now, but definitely just saying that this is a new way to could fight back. Basically, organizing, trying to get all the petitions into one group. So instead of 10 petitions on the same thing, this is one major petition with more signatures on it. So it has far more weight, and then starting from there. So I urge you to go and check out We Are the Voice, the Facebook group. I'll just put back here, and the Facebook group. They've also got you've got Telegram. You said so. The Telegram and the website wearethevoice.com.au. Go check them out. And let's hope that, as we say here, we're on the right side of history, but we're just an awful long way from home. That we start heading back to somewhere good, or heading towards somewhere better than where we're being taken at the moment. Because where we're being taken is shite. That's the technical word, shite. It's hats off to you. It's hats off to you. I wish you the best. I know you come from I won't say any more, but I know you come from a family of fighters. So I wish you the best, warrior.
Thanks.
You got anything else to add? You go. You want to say something to Australia to give them a bit of hope as they go out, because it's a dark day at the moment with Dan trying to push through his I want to be emperor laws.
Yeah, I guess I would definitely say I think one of the best weapons they're also having against us is just, all we have to do is sit at home and just scroll through endless Telegram feeds, and all we feel like we have power to do is just, send links anywhere. I mean, it is good to share information, but choose the information wisely, and don't try to push that down people's mouths, because people are sick of hearing from information. But we should live out what we believe. We shouldn't be hiding that. People need to be voicing that up wherever you are. If you're a uni student, don't just sit back in the back of the class and feel isolated. Speak out, because there are other people there are other people that have the same view, and they just feel completely isolated. And eventually what happens is, everyone just flips because they just feel completely isolated. But if we realized, if we can speak up, and the power of your voice is just, unthinkable, and people will start to jump onto that, and you create momentum by, pulling out of social media, just endless, scrolling and feeling defeated. We have such power in just our single voice, and being an influence, being a light in the midst of darkness.
That's right.
So I would say
that's right.
Pull out of that.
That's what you have to be. And every time you stand up, you become a light in that darkness. That's the truth. And the more you get together with other people, the brighter that light becomes. That's the way we got to fight. That's it.
Yeah.
It's that simple. It's that simple. History is full of it. We just have to do what we have to do. The petition is here for the first petition they want to do, but I think they've got a lot of plans to go more. I'm going to go have a cup of tea before I do my evening show. Rachel, it's been lovely to meet you. And maybe I look forward to meeting you in person sometime, maybe outside in the park, because I've got a feeling you're probably not allowed in cafes. And I really wish you the best. Thanks for coming on. Thank you.
No, thank you. All the best.
No worries. Take care. Check her out. We Are the Voice. wearethevoice.com.au. Take care.